What is happening to our young soldiers who went to war in our names? Who are these soldiers suffering such terrible storms in their minds? We see them begging in our streets, sleeping in cardboard boxes. We turn away and wonder how they became so lost. I wanted to try and do something to help them find their way back from the wars that had taken them so far from home. I had a dream that there was a place in Scotland, a village on the North Sea, where these soldiers could begin to earn back their belief in themselves, so that they could carry on with that measure of dignity they were entitled to.
The biggest part of my problem was that I could then block everything out by going for a pint, which led to quite a lot of pints and drink, which was the downfall, really.
I lived it, I dealt with it, had to deal with it for a long time, still do deal with it. It's not something you can just forget about. And yeah, we can sit there and, oh, we could have done this, or this is how you need to look at it, this is whatever. At the end of the day, I have to figure out what works best for me to deal with it, and you know, it's an ongoing process.
You start to realize that there are, you know, consequences to our job. Sometimes we lose that in the Hollywood aspect of things.
I said, well, leave it.
Ely would be our home for a month. It's just a beautiful village, hard against the North Sea, a place so far removed from the rest of the world that you don't feel the rush of time. And it would be a place where these soldiers, no matter where they looked in any direction, would see stunning beauty. And they would also feel the peace of solitude. Out their back door was a magnificent golf course, one of the purest links courses anywhere in the world, where in the winter they could often walk and not see another person. And Ely was the right place also because an extraordinary number of young men, boys actually, had left there for the Great War and then for World War II. Many of them never returned. And for those soldiers, I imagine that this golf course might have been the last peaceful place they had walked before they went to the horrors of war. And I wanted our soldiers to have that same experience, to have this ground to themselves, and to feel like it had been waiting for hundreds of years just for them to arrive.
I tried to get on another contract and it fell through. So in end of April, my grandmother died, so I came back early, ended that contract, and moved on to the next one. And the day before I was supposed to leave for the training.
So we have 6 soldiers, 2 from Canada, 1 from America, and 3 from the UK. And they'll spend the month of February training outdoors every day at the magnificent Duke's course in St. Andrews, with Davy Gilchrist, who was twice voted Caddie Master of the Year in Scotland, and David Scott, a PGA master professional, one of only 48 in the world, teaching them how to build their golfers' confidence and avoid the catastrophes and the despair that are often so much a part of this game. I had already had a certain amount of success as a writer. I'd written a movie that Gary Sinise starred in. I got to be on the set with him. I had a couple of books that did well, but The point of origin for this dream was when Davy Gilchrist hired me to be a caddy at age 58, because that gave me the credential to even believe in myself enough to believe in this dream.
I had views from caddies, being an assistant caddy master, being caddy master and winning awards, then coming out of the caddy world and going into tourism and hearing all about the caddies from the golfer's point of view, coming off the golf course. So I had taken all that on board and put it into this training month, so as I covered every aspect that I could.
We held to a very tight schedule for the whole month, the kind of non-stop schedule that caddies live by. Monday through Thursday, we were training at the Duke's course under the instruction of Davy Gilchrist and David Scott.
You're the ambassadors for the very first caddy school programme, okay? And this is going to carry on every year, as we've spoke already. We're going to make this big, and it can only grow.
My name's Colin McLaughlin. I spent 9 years in the Royal Scots, kind of Edinburgh-based infantry regiment, and then the next 8 with the Special Forces SAS. I got captured out in Iraq, stripped naked, blindfolded, handcuffed, mock executions, the whole 9 yards, and that kind of led to me coming out, and kind of struggled when I first came out, adapting into the civilian world. And although I went out in the circuit, it was almost like being back in the military again. It was when I came back and tried to fit back in and go through university and get a normal job, that's where I really struggled. In 18 holes, you can have all sorts going on. You can have success, failures, a great day, a bad day, a good shot, a bad shot. And I think sometimes, I don't know what you're like, but my average day or week or month can be like that. Things are going well, then they're not going so well, and all sort of things come into it. Golf's also good because it's a mix of mental and physical, and I think they both complement each other. And you know, I'm preaching to the converted, but sometimes a lot of the shots are in your head, and it's nothing about how good a player you are, what handicap you are. Sometimes you can mentally talk yourself out of a shot or into a shot, depending how you're doing. There's wee chunks where like you play alright, and then there's others where you don't. But that was a losing trick. I've got 5 years.
So because golf is a ruinous game and has moments of terrible difficulty for everyone who plays it, no matter what level they play at, the caddy's role is so crucial. The great caddy who said to me, you know, let them lose their belief in you, let them lose their belief in God if necessary, but don't ever let them lose their belief in themselves. That's really what these soldiers are going to discover when they start working as caddies. Scotty had been to every war the Queen could send one of her paratroopers, from the troubles in Northern Ireland to Iraq and Afghanistan to Bosnia and Africa. And I could see it all in his eyes when we spoke. I worried that perhaps he was too shy or a little too introspective and serious to be the kind of companion that a caddy has to be from time to time with golfers he attends to. But he had a strength about him and an earnestness that I trusted.
I'm Scott Hale. I'm from Edinburgh. I served with the Parachute Regiment, the Royal Scots and the Royal Logistics Corps. I've done 2 tours of Afghanistan, 2 tours of Iraq, tour of Bosnia, tour of Kosovo, 5.5 years in Northern Ireland, tour of Africa, standby for Sierra Leone, which never came about, but we were trained for it.
There are certain golf courses that have caddy programs that sometimes don't leave the clubs as clean as I like them, okay? So you're getting that guy, he's come from another golf course the day before, his clubs are dirty while you've been introduced to him. Right away, you get cleaning those clubs. That guy sees you working for the minute you've taken his bag, you know? Then you can see a wee joke. We used to have the standing joke. Hey Bob, a bit dirty these clubs, were you playing the tatty field yesterday? No, a potato field. That's what we'd say. You've been growing potatoes? And he'd laugh. You know, if you can get away with that, go for it. But let him see you work right away, cleaning the clubs, getting him ready to play golf.
When I met Troy, I knew that I was in the presence of the kind of quiet strength you seldom witness in this world. I mean, God doesn't make men any stronger than Troy. He was a mountain climber before he became a soldier. But he had been through incredible darkness, having his best friend die in the war, and I sensed that this darkness was something he had to battle every single day, just to see the light. I knew there would be days in Scotland when he could lose this battle.
I did indoor rock climbing, taught a bunch of members of the military at the time that came in, and you know, jump forward 2 years after that, I was working in my clinic in Kingston, and I ran into a bunch of them down at a pub one night. And I was miserable. I hated my job at the time. I felt like I needed to do more in my life. With that, they were like, we've got the job for you. They had just started to develop a special forces program in Canada again after the disbandment of the Airborne. And I was really excited because I thought it was going to be like all the movies. So I went down to the recruiting office the next day and joined. Thought I'd be able to make a difference. I thought that's the best way you could make a difference, is to defend somebody's ability to be free by defending them.
The worst thing you want to do is land in that bunker at 2:31 out, especially the day when it's a winter green, when you could go into that area there, no trouble at all. Yep. Then you're going for the flag, which is in that area there, roughly over that bunker. My ploy is today, you've got to talk to your golfer, show him that. The last thing you want to do is let him catch that bunker or that when you're 200. So you could be hitting today 206, even if you hit a 200-yard shot today. That's what I'm saying, at the end of the day, it's your golfer's option. You've just to explain the strategy of the hole, what he can do, and then you leave it, okay? They've got the final say.
Big, strong Simon, who looks like he could knock down houses and has that boyish sparkle in his eyes. I looked at him and said to myself, if I came to the UK to play golf and I could have this fellow walking beside me, I would feel blessed. But there was also something about him that made me feel like he was trying very hard to conceal his vulnerability, or that part of him that was broken. And he was doing this for my benefit, to spare me from knowing his grief. I worried that he might try to conceal too much from the other soldiers, so they would not really have the chance to know who he was.
My name's Simon Jones. I'm 30. I'm a former Royal Marines Commando, and I live on the Wirral with my partner Caroline, my son Liam, who's 8, and my daughter Olivia, who's 2. A lot of my friends were going to carry on into higher education, and then on again into further education, university. That didn't really appeal to me at the time. The honest answer is that there was adverts on the telly that just blew me away, and I was like, I'm gonna have to give that a go. So it took months and months and months of hounding and pestering my mum and dad to fill the forms out, and then I finally got a signature. Started training in May 2006, and I went straight to Iraq as a young Marine. It sort of got me operationally prepared for Afghanistan, which we all knew was the big one that was coming. Iraq for me was fairly quiet. I was there towards the end of the conflict really. But again, it prepared me well, admin-wise. It squared me away for what was to come.
That wind's biting it a little bit, Dawn. Yeah, a little bit. And again, guys, remember your wind position. You know, I always say a good line there's on that rake on the bunker.
Lovely strike, sir.
Down, down, down. Come on.
Thank you
Down,
very
down.
It's not that much
That was
longer,
a good
sir.
strike, Troy.
It's not that much longer. Good
That was
shot.
a good strike. Never, that wind never touched it, which proves it was a good strike.
No, that was a lovely strike, sir.
I suppose all soldiers have to reinvent themselves when they return from war. But with Rob, here was a soldier who had lost his arm and literally had to reinvent himself in the most basic way. A right-handed man now having to learn how to navigate the world as a left-hander. There was a marvelous resilience about him when we spoke. When I asked him to tell me about his physical wound, it was as if he were describing a paper cut. But I worried that it might be difficult for a man with one arm to function as a caddy. I kept thinking of the days when it rained, when just keeping a golfer and his clubs dry required a kind of magician's trick.
I'm Rob. I'm ex-RAF. I'm a chef by trade. Got blown up in the first Gulf War. I joined the RAF. My father had been in for 22 years. I never really thought I was a service person. Anyway, it transpires that I joined up. I actually quite enjoyed, I enjoyed my service career, but it is a long time ago. I mean, it's 28 years ago since I finished, and I joined up in early 80s. I've come on this caddy course to learn to be a caddy, to see whether I can do it, and if I can do it, then anybody who's injured, ex-service, can do it.
I really didn't know what the golfing side of things were from the guys. I didn't know what their handicaps were. I knew they played a bit of golf. They had never caddied before. They had probably never taken notes about caddies when they watched the golf in the telly. So it was all going to be a brand new thing for them.
Definitely want to aim at the second bunker.
Basically going from the, yeah.
You want to aim
I'm
at
not
the
going.
left bunker. You're not going to hit it that far, right?
No, I won't hit 250.
Yeah. Okay, so yeah, let's hit towards that left bunker. Hopefully a slight fade to the right. We'll be in the center. Where do you want to hit?
Yeah, I'm gonna see what the windage is like first.
There was a beautiful simplicity and elegance in Richard's first letter to me. He was trying his best to put together some kind of life for himself and his wife, but the pieces just weren't falling into place. He was searching for some new path, and he'd had this wonderful relationship with his grandfather who had introduced him to golf when he was a boy. And I was quite certain that he believed his training as a caddy would reconnect him to his grandfather and would please him to no end. I had a sense, though, that Richard had been through his own darkness, and that he might keep the other soldiers at a distance rather than reveal this darkness to them.
Richard Reck from Monroe, Michigan. Served 8 years as a MP and infantry. Now serve the last 5 years in the Army Reserves as military police. Did 2 tours in Iraq, a tour in Afghanistan, and a tour in Afghanistan as a contractor. I knew I was going to join 2001, February 21st. Seen Black Hawk Down. It was the first movie I ever got to see that was military based, and kind of cemented my idea that I wanted to do that. Before that, it was more of a, I didn't really see myself going to college. And a lot of my teachers kept bringing up that the auto industry was going to fail, and my dad worked in the auto industry. And I kind of knew my family couldn't support me through college. Didn't interest me in the least bit anyway. And the military, once I saw Black Hawk Down, I was like, That's what I want to do.
First tee, you're standing there, inevitably, you're going to get asked, how's the weather going to be today, Dave? Now, they've got waterproofs in their bags, brollies, they've got their wet gloves. Coming to Scotland, they've got more gear than they normally have. Scotty will know that, and the boys down south will know that as well. So they'll ask you what the weather's going to be. Always tell them to take their waterproofs and their brolly. I'll just leave them and I'll get them put back to make the bag lighter. Oh, that's fine. Second tee, smashes down. The guy's drowned. It's no good. You know, guy's not your pal. The guy's not your pal anymore.
It was Kevin's calmness that impressed me. No single quality is more important in a caddy than remaining calm. Through the highs and the inevitable lows of any round, a calm demeanor is what steadies the ship and keeps the golfer on an even keel. But his calmness also made me wonder if there might be a storm raging in Kevin beneath the surface. And I worried that being so far from his home in Canada and from his wife might be difficult for him to weather the storm.
This is Kevin Dunphy, 32 years old, from Nova Scotia, Canada. Almost 10 years in the Canadian Armed Forces. May 2010, I was deployed to Afghanistan. Flew in to Dubai, took a Herc to Kandahar Airfield. From Kandahar Airfield, we boarded a helicopter. Helicopter took us to the Pakistan border in the Panjwai district. My job there, along with 24 other people, was to clear roads. So before anybody traveled down a road any day, me and my team would go down and clear it from IEDs, roadside bombs, and mines. So there's several different vehicles within the fleet. Usually there's 2 mine detecting vehicles, a troop carrying vehicle, a vehicle that also has a big arm on it to interrogate suspicious spots. And then we also have a team that walks. We had a few bad days over there. Unfortunately, you find most of the bombs the bad way. Half the time you find them the good way.
These boys were living with terrible storms inside their minds, and a support system at home to help them weather the storms. And now I was taking them far away from those support systems, and I worried about what might happen. And I knew that the only way this would work was if they learned to support each other. And so really, what we had to create in Scotland was a love story. And a love story cannot exist without trust. I worried that they might not trust each other. I worried that they might not trust the exceptional people waiting in Scotland to train them as caddies. Mostly, I worried that they would not trust me. And why should they trust me, an old man who had never been a soldier? Scottish caddies learn all about the weather and the sea. How do you know if it's going to be a calm day? Well, when you first get to work in the morning, just after sunrise, and you see the small fishing boats out on the North Sea, you know that it's not going to be too bad. They're your meteorologists, your weathermen. You pay attention to all those little details. I had a Scottish caddy tell me on the old course one day that when the tide turns, the wind can back around 180 degrees and be coming from a completely different direction. And I remember going to town and getting a tide table so that I knew each day when the tide was going to turn. This is where the game began here, and weather was a part of it, and golf was never meant to be more than a test of endurance and a lesson in humility. bringing these boys to Scotland to train them was very, very important, that they learn what role the weather plays and how most of the time they spend with their golfers here, it's just basically helping them to survive. Golf can be a very, very, it is a ruinous game for almost everyone who plays it. We live 20 miles from St. Andrews, so on Sundays I walk the soldiers around the old course where I had caddied in 2010. I wanted them to become familiar with that ground because it is the holy land of golf, and I took every opportunity to remind the boys of this. Everywhere we went, everyone we met embraced what we were doing, and it wasn't long before the splendor of the place set into each one of these soldiers. It's always nice to greet your man here on the first tee and say, welcome to Scotland, I hope you have the best time of your life. Usually the wind is howling in your face, blowing left to right, and that is all out of bounds on the right over that white fence. So all you do is say to the man, I want you to take whatever club you're comfortable with, and I want you to hit it right there towards that bush. There's the Swilcan Bridge and there's the bush. And if it runs on the ground, we'll be taking a 9-iron into the first green, okay? It's that simple, there's no more. So let's go, keep it really simple. Scotty be driving it, Scotty be driving it.
Kevin's gonna do it just to make you mad.
Yeah, yeah, yeah. What you know and don't talk about is that the famous principal's nose bunkers all lie over there to the left. Those are death. If your guy hits a snap hook here, you're going to lose a stroke getting out. But you don't talk about it. You just know it, but you don't talk about it. Give me 180 yards right at that roof. And he's a little intimidating because it's totally blind. Can you see the red flag out there, boys?
Yeah. You see it and the white.
Oh, good. Yeah. You don't want to take aim at that because you're too far right. Everything will blow. Remember, the wind's always howling left to right. Okay, let's go find out where our second shot is here. Very important, guys. Because all of our greens are double greens, we're now coming into 3, which is shared with 15. You're taking a really good look at the pin placement on 15 so that you can remember when you're coming back, it's only 5 paces from the bunker in the back. I'm coming in 30, 40 yards short of that pin when I get back here. You're going to school on the way out on the holes coming back. You're going to give you the pin sheet at the caddy shed. Every day, of course, all the pins are recut. You're caddy in St. Andrews. You got the old course, the new, the Jubilee, the Eden, the Strathtyrum, and the Castle course. 6 times 18 new pin placements every single day. And there's Scotty on the first, he's in the caddy shed, and Rob, the caddy, must say, Scotty, you're not on the old now, you're on the Jubilee. Imagine that. Terrifying, terrifying. You're studying this thing all the way. And after 30 rounds, you will know where all the balls roll on all these greens. It won't even faze you.
Just to see these guys walking around the golf course, chatting. At one time, these guys would have maybe been in situations where they would have had nobody to talk to for days. These guys are going out to talk to people, having fun, and there's no danger there.
Of course, it was going to take time and trust before the soldiers would talk with me about what they had been through in their wars. And while we were getting to know each other, I was always trying to make them see that we're all haunted by something. None of us goes through this life without that happening. Someone we trusted betrays us. Something we believed in turns to dust. I wanted the soldiers to see that there wasn't any shame in this, in the scars that mark us. And each time I saw them smiling and laughing, I sensed that they were nearing the moment when they would talk with me, not about caddying or golf, but about the nightmares they lived with, the nightmares that haunted them and shaped their lives.
I was involved with an individual that was incredibly young, Too young to be in combat, in my opinion. And unfortunately died, was killed. And it really, really bothered me. And it made me want to flip everything on its head and say, you know, if I was a 12 or 13-year-old boy in Canada and an occupying force came in my country and my father looked at me and said, we're not going to live under their values, he's going to pick up a rifle and fight them. Child mentality is, I'm going to follow dad. He may not even understand or can fathom what is about to happen or why they're even doing it, but he's going to back dad. And that's very difficult for me to kind of stomach, because I can flip it and be that little boy. And I struggle with that. And, you know, I'd also, on my last tour to Afghanistan, lost my best friend before I deployed. And I remember his ramp ceremony. So in Canada, they fly the bodies home and they land on an airfield, and they parade them off the back of the air transport into hearses. And I stood with my best friend's mother, and another friend stood with his father as they did the march past. And we moved over to the hearse, and I picked up his little, my best friend's little girl, and helped her put a rose on a casket. And that was a profound day in my life where that lightning bolt went. I was kind of doing things for the wrong reasons, in my opinion, and it's only my opinion. But I thought after that it would be far better to try to save lives than be a tool to take a life. Even though it may be validated, it's still a big pill to swallow.
It's all a blur, to be honest. I can't really remember much. February 2009, we were on a routine foot patrol, so we left our forward operating base. I think we left about 4:30, 5 in the morning when it was still dark, and it was a tough day that. I remember it was hard, it was cold. But then the atmospherics changed, everything changed. There was men rounding up women and children, getting them away, and we knew something was coming, because it was a bit of a habit, really, of the Taliban at the time. They'd just monitor your patrol, watch you until you were absolutely exhausted and almost back, and then they'd hit you. And then before we could even turn around and think, it was just a massive bang. It must have thrown me around 10, 15, 20 feet into like the top line of a trench. And then I sort of came round, and we were under fire from about 3, 4 firing points in the distance. And it was absolute carnage. And then I remember looking up, seeing my corporal. He was in a bad way. He'd lost both legs straight away. And then because we'd peeled off together, the other guys couldn't really get to us initially because we were under heavy fire. And I just remember screaming. I think I screamed until I lost my voice. It was that painful. Basically, it hit me and ripped open like my hand, my arm, my backside, all the back of my legs. So really my physical injuries at the time were nowhere near as bad as my corporal, so therefore he was the main priority on the ground. They tried to get us out of there, but we were basically in the biggest open area within our area of operation, so trying to land the helicopter in there when all that's going on it's not going to happen. So it was basically down to the guys in my team to do the job, really, to do what they were trained to do, which they did. They went above and beyond, every one of them, won the firefight, and eventually, I think about 45 minutes later, got us out of there.
I was in the Iraqi desert. We were deployed in 1990, and the 2nd of February, Lost Palm. Having one arm is tough. Guys who've got post-traumatic stress are, they suffer. Internally they suffer because we've all, well, most of us got post-traumatic stress, big bangs and all that sort of stuff affects people. Somebody like Troy has been everywhere that most people, you're gonna have to stop.
One day we had a really long day. We hit 3 IEDs in a 25-meter square, and we found another one. So we moved about 25 meters within 17 hours. So it was a lot hot. Unfortunately, one of my good friends lost his leg that day. He's lucky to be alive to this day. And yeah, he's a strong man. It was Father's Day, and he was expecting to have a baby that day, so. Unfortunately, he can never have kids again. But we're lucky we still have him around. Next day, roll out again. So we had about 8 hours to kind of resupply the vehicles, and then we were back on the road first thing at sunset.
I made decisions on the battlefield. I don't regret that. They're split-second decisions. You don't get to second-guess those. You just do what you know what you're supposed to do. You can sit there and analyze them, post-mission all day long, but then all that does is fix you for the next mission. Like, hey, next time I run into this situation, I'm going to do this. When it comes to an emotional response of somebody committing suicide, and we're dealing with that, 22 times a day, and in my mind, I never thought I'd have to deal with it. I never once crossed my mind. I've had friends that have done it, but they had done it after I'd long gone, months. They'd gone to a new unit, they'd moved on to a new career, stuff like that. But to have a soldier underneath me and to have them commit suicide was never once a thought I had. I never had that guy that was an issue. And even the guy that did, he was great. He was the happiest soldier I had. He was always on time. He was always doing everything he had to do for not only his reserve career, but his actual career. And it was a complete blindside. The only indicator I had whatsoever was his drinking. But what 19-year-old kid in the U.S. that doesn't drink, I don't know. If I had made that decision to talk to him, the weekend that I knew it was a problem, instead of waiting till the next weekend when I was going to see him, would it have changed anything? People could tell me no, it wouldn't have changed anything, but at the end of the day, it would change it for me because I know I did my part. I have to live with that.
I think soldiers coming back from war are often strangers to themselves. They have to now adapt to the real world. They don't really know who they are, and when you're a stranger to yourself, you don't really believe in yourself anymore. You don't know which version of yourself to believe in. And when you work as a caddy and you earn the trust of a stranger every day, you begin to get back some of that belief in yourself. It's a slow process, but it accumulates. And after a while, if you keep your eyes open, you realize that most of us miss the real story of our lives because we think it's about us, and it isn't. It's the part that we play in someone else's story. And as a caddy, you're a part of someone else's story every single round of golf that you work.
When they walked in, we did ask questions and got their feelings on how they were feeling at that moment in time. They're very much more relaxed now. They seem to be enjoying themselves, especially when I go out on the golf course with them every round. I drive them out in a buggy and I visualise. I'm looking for faults. They're not coming, which makes me happy. It's the whole process of the standing in the right area, interacting with your golfer properly, the clearing the clubs, the yardages getting right, taking wind direction in. They've taken it all on board and it's now stored in their brains for the rest of their caddying life if that's what they decide they want to do.
We had a special surprise in store for the boys that we kept secret for the month. On their last day, before they headed home, they were going to play the old course, something that most golfers in the world only ever get to dream about, and something that they would never forget.
I've been golfing since about the age of 5. So I've been involved with the sport for many years. I mean, it brings a lot of similarities with the military too, where the comradeship, the banter between the players, the trust that lies within the team, the caddy, the player team. It's just a different angle to look at the sport from.
I love golf and I love being on the golf course because I can slow my mind down and get out of the hustle and bustle of the world, because that chatter and that noise in my head will cause me to withdraw from a lot of things. Just to try to get quiet again because I feel overwhelmed. Anxiety comes up, and if you can get away from cars honking and people yelling or pushing and shoving and it's just you and nature and 2 or 3 other guys enjoying the moment, it's an incredible experience.
In about a week's time, it's the 10-year anniversary since I got injured, which is quite poignant really, that I'm here and starting a brand new chapter in my life. So yeah, the time just feels right to try and come away from the whole security industry as a whole and try and do or be a part of something that I love and has always really been there for me. Not just to enjoy a game of golf, but for mentally, which is obviously where at one point, and to a certain extent sometimes now, I still struggle with. So golf sort of tides me over and keeps me going really.
It took a long time for me to realize that I was actually struggling. Addictions came into play. Gambling, drinking excessively. And it just got to a point where I needed to start looking up instead of down, and reached out to get help. Several different therapies, most of them didn't work. And I mean, for anyone, it's just kind of finding the therapy that suits you. And truly, I believe that golf is the best therapy for me. I'm outside, there's not that many people around. I can play it with my friends, the ones I like, I trust. So that's why I think it's a good fit to come here.
Having that ability to talk with each other, build each other up, work together through things, and then also get to build that on the golf course. There's a confidence building there across the board, and it also helps us deal with issues that you don't get to really talk about on the golf course with just random people at the end of the day. So there's a lot of things that happen because we're together every single day, and without that, I don't think you get the same experience, same outcome that we're having right now.
Anything outdoors really is meant to work, take guys' minds off things and help them recuperate not only physically but mentally, which is, as people are now becoming more aware, really important. Men's mental health, it's a massive issue really, and one that we're starting to see signs of improvement. This is a great way for me to be able to take my mind off things, when the dark days do come, which they do, because anyone who says they don't, to me, is a liar. You can't really go out to a place like that for an extended period of time and not come back changed, not come back different. An opportunity like this helps me focus, and it's given me a new goal now, to hopefully find a career in the golf industry as a caddy.
Everybody's gone. The soldiers have all gone. The only trace of them is this little paratrooper pin that Troy left behind that I'll wear. Yeah, so we bury a golf ball in the old course with the soldiers' names on it, and there is something symbolic about that. The way that these soldiers have to live now is to bury, you know, the darkness from the past and all the struggle that they've been through, to try to put it behind them. Because the truth of the matter is, and this is true in my, in my life as well, the therapy, the medication, it doesn't work. They all told me that. It doesn't, even if it works for a little while, it doesn't last. People will wonder why I did this, why I set out on this. And it's a little bit complicated, the answer. Yeah, so my father came back from the war. He was 21. He married the only girl he ever had loved. That was Peggy. She was 18. And they had 9 months together. And then she gave birth to twin baby boys and then died 16 days later. And he was shattered. And he spent that autumn sleeping on her grave under his army blanket. And in the morning, the boys who had gone off to war with him would take turns swinging by the cemetery and picking him up and taking him to the coffee shop just to try to get him to talk. And I think I spent most of my life trying to get him to talk. I didn't know what he was haunted by or what he was concealing from me. Those men were the fathers of my boyhood, those World War II guys. They'd fought all over Europe and the Pacific. So I had a respect for soldiers, but it wasn't until years later when I began to identify that my father had been one of them, and that changed my relationship with him. I didn't realize it till we were actually all here in Scotland the first day, and when I looked at them, I realized that they were the same. They were the soldiers who had come by the cemetery every morning and who had saved my father's life. They had the same characteristics. They carried themselves with a kind of weary dignity, the way caddies do, really. This is something that I talk to the boys about. Boys. I think of them as boys. They've been through more than I'll ever experience in my life, of course, but I talk to them about how, for many people, life really isn't a straight line. You believe in certain things, you make your plans and do the best you can to build a life, and then you wake up one morning and discover that nothing is the way you always thought it was. So you have to find a way to cross that distance between how you imagined your life would be and how it actually is. What I hope for is that they will be gentle on themselves when they're lost. Because in those times when you're lost, your soul is most alert to the journey that you're on, to the ground beneath your feet, to the landscape and the people surrounding you, to the possibilities of this world, and to what really matters most.